Hi, this is Margo. This is Tuesday afternoon, March the 10th, 2020. I hope everyone is doing well, and I'm going to do a sea ice update today. It's been almost a month. It's been, the last one I did was on February the 16th. So we're going to look at sea ice and a little bit of Climate Reanalyzer here. Here are the temperatures for today around the planet. And here's the global view. We can see that it's hot across Middle Africa. Now remember, in the southern hemisphere, it's in their springtime, and we're heading into their springtime from the summer. And just like opposite that, in the northern hemisphere, we're heading from winter into the spring, and we're seeing a lot of cold air over the Arctic right now. We're seeing a lot of warm temperatures still in the lower latitudes here. Here's our 2-meter temperature anomaly map from today. And we're seeing a lot of cold air, lower than normal in the Arctic. A lot of purple, this purplish white. Looks like it's minus 20 degrees Celsius. So it's 20 degrees lower than average or than normal here. We've got some brown in the Arctic. Got some reddish brown up here in the northeast of the US. Here's the global view. We've got it reddish over here from Russia and the Middle Eastern countries as well, and a little bit of red down here in the Antarctic. So overall, for the world, it's up 0.4 C. Warmer than normal. The northern hemisphere is up 0.6 C. The southern hemisphere is up 0.2 C. The Arctic is down 1.6 C, and the Antarctic is up 0.2 C, and the tropics are up 0.6 C. So we're not used to seeing these cooler temperatures. I'm thinking it's because of the high sulfur dioxide levels that are in the atmosphere right now that could be cooling things down somewhat. Here's the precipitation for today. We can see it's snowing across this part of the Arctic from northern Norway all the way across the Barents Sea and the Kara Sea and up to Franz Josef Land and over here by Svalbard, and it's snowing a little bit over here in the Beaufort Sea, and we've got some rain off the coast of Norway and coming out, and then snow around Iceland. Here's the flat view of the globe, and we can see the rain is coming very close to the border of the Antarctic, and then it turns into snow there. So it's still winter up here in the northern hemisphere. We can see that a lot of the blue is snow, so we still have quite a bit of snow, and up here in the northeast US and Canada here, it's even into the purple range, which is a mix of rain and snow here up there. The jet stream, let's see what's going on here. we can see it split off here, coming across the Atlantic. It almost looks like they converge. It looks like it converges here in the middle part of the United States, and then they split off again. That's really strange looking. And something similar to that here over Europe and Northern Africa. I don't know what to make of that. And then it's very split and wavy around the South Pole. Oh, here's the sea ice and snow cover, and in the wintertime it's really hard to tell much of a difference from day to day here. And the sun is up. We're going to look at NASA Worldview today too, and you'll see that the sun is up there. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly from yesterday, and we can see that that's still high. We can see reds over here near Japan, and reddish brown near Australia, and we've got these blobs of hot water around. Here's a blob in the middle of the Atlantic. Now we've had some sulfur dioxide releases here and some earthquakes really here as well. And so worldwide it's up 0.4 C. The northern hemisphere is up 0.4 C. The southern hemisphere is up 0.3 C. The North Atlantic is the winner, being up 0.6 C. The North Pacific is up 0.4 C. And the Equatorial Pacific is up 0.2 C. So there's that. I have some pictures ready here. This is from the Navy website for the U.S. military for today, the 10th. And this is what the sea ice thickness looks like in the Arctic today, according to their model. And so the purple and the lavender, that's 1 meter and less in thickness. And then the aqua, when you get up into the aqua, that's about 2 to 2.5 meters thick. Then the green is about 3 meters thick, and then the yellow is about 3.5 meters thick, and then the red starts at 4 to 4.5. So we can see that it's mainly in the purple around the Russia side of the Arctic. And when we look at NASA Worldview, you're going to be able to see the chunks of the ice and the cracks and everything. And so the blue is around here, and then so it's quite thin from here on around here in this area, from the Barents Sea, including the Kara Sea and the Laptev Sea over here, and then it's purplish over here in the Chukchi Sea. And we've been seeing a lot of methane coming up in the Arctic, especially near the Severnae Zemlya here, and this is quite melted around it. And then we have the thicker area moving down towards Greenland, And the thickest area is just a little bit right here on the northern edge of Greenland. We've got just a tiny bit of red and yellow. And we've got a little bit of red and yellow here on the Canadian island, here, island edge, and down here, and then some green. But the thick ice that we used to have that covered this whole area, that's gone. That's gone, and so we can see that most of the Arctic is 2 meters or less than 2 meters. The majority is in this, like, I would say less than 2. It's this darker aqua, about 1.75. The majority from the cross lines here, for east and west cross line, up is definitely darker, and then south we've got the thicker ice down here. Here's the Baffin Bay, that's quite thin, and the Hudson Bay, it's quite thin. And the little tributaries, they're like in the aqua range. It's the dark aqua. Now here's the 30-day animation from the Navy. It goes back 3 weeks and forward 1 week in prediction. So it starts on February the 18th, and then it goes forward to March the 17th. So that's what they're showing. They're showing it thinning quite a lot. In fact, at a point there was no ice around the coastline here on the Chukchi Sea. Look at that. That's kind of disturbing. Look. That was on the 7th, which was just a few days ago. We'll go back. Here it was on the 6th. We can see it's pretty much all melted right around the coastline. That's such a thin, a light lavender. And then it's coming back a little bit. Now we did have a couple of weeks where it was warmer. The air temperature was way up, and the Arctic was way up. It was like 3.7 C higher than normal, and I think it went up to, I think I saw it at 3.9 C higher than normal at one point. So that will have an effect on all of this. So here we're in the forecast period, and there's the end of their animation. So this is where they're anticipating it to be in a week. And the sun is up, and all the coastlines are in view except for just a little bit of Greenland, which, within a week that will all be in the sunlight too. I made this movie from NASA Worldview for you for today. This is the sea ice and snow concentration. And it goes back to February 14th. and it runs through March the 8th. So we saw that where it got so thin here, where you see the blue, that's less concentrated. So it really thinned out in late February and early March, and then it started refreezing. It's not doing well here around Novaya Zemlya at all. Now look here where it had melted away from the coastline of Novaya Zemlya all around it. Just go day by day. It's the 29th. Now look how thin it is up here on the 1st and the 2nd. Look how blue it is. And there's the end of that. So that's what I had for pictures for you today. So let's go to this. This is the National Snow and Ice Data Center for the sea ice index. We're going to go to concentration. We're on the Arctic, and this is from, let's go to daily. And this is for yesterday, the 9th. And we can see this correlates, although I think that NASA Worldview gives us a little bit more detail as far as the content, you know, where we can see the blues. Here's the chart for Arctic sea ice extent. This is the area of ocean with at least 15% sea ice. And this blue line is this winter, 2019 to 2020. And it's below the dotted line, which was 2012. So it's below 2012. So that's not good. And let's see. So there's that. If we want to look at the Antarctic, here's what it looks like. Now remember, they're at the end of their melt season and it's starting to refreeze. And so it's melted almost all the way up to the coastline around. And most ice we have left here is in the Weddell Sea, and that's typical. Now here's the chart for daily sea ice extent for the Antarctic. And this gray line was last year, and that was the lowest. It was last year, and the blue line is this year. So we were about tied with last year at the end of February, but now it's going back up, so it's a little bit higher than that now. But not much. It's still quite low. Also on this website we have sea ice news. Arctic Sea Ice News and Analysis. They provide an update during the first week of each month or more frequently as conditions warrant. So they show the sea ice extent that we just saw, and they they go over the Antarctic if you click there, but it defaults to the Arctic. This was posted on March the 4th, and it says a persistently positive Arctic oscillation. They call it an Arctic oscillation with what was going on with the sea ice. And I'll just read this paragraph. Sea ice extent for February 2020 tracked below average, ranking as the 13th lowest monthly average in the satellite record. A brief pause in ice growth in the middle of February was related to the regional wind pattern. Well, we saw that. We saw it thinning, too. As has been the case for the past several months, the Arctic oscillation was in a persistently positive phase. This manifested as unusually low sea level pressure over the Atlantic side of the Arctic Ocean and high pressure over eastern Eurasia, extending eastward into Arctic Canada. I'll go ahead and read this next paragraph. Arctic sea ice extent for February 2020 was 14.68 million square kilometers, or 5.67 million square miles, the 13th lowest in the satellite record. This was 620,000 square kilometers, or 239,000 square miles, below the 1981 to 2010 February average, and 710 square kilometers, or 274,000 square miles, above the record low mark for February set in 2018. So the record low was only 2 years ago, so we were just above that. At the end of February, ice extent was below average over parts of the Barents and Kara Seas and the eastern Greenland Sea. So they're talking about, this is the Barents Sea, here's the Kara Sea, and the Greenland Sea over here. So they're talking about this area where it was unusually low. And so on. This is quite long. If you want to come here, you can, I'll leave the link below. And you can see, here's the oscillation index for winter 2019 to 2020. And here's 2020 compared to previous years so far. So the trend is down. We see this with the methane, with the trend being up. So the sea ice is, the trend is down. Even though you see it go down and up and down and up, the overall trend is down. Because it doesn't come back to the level where it was a year before. Now in the Antarctic, it's nearing the minimum in the south. This was sea ice extent on February 21st. As of February 20th and 21st, Antarctic sea ice extent likely reached its annual minimum at 2.69 million square kilometers, or 1.04 million square kilometers. However, as of March 1st, sea ice extent has increased only marginally above the minimum value to 2.71 million square kilometers, or 1.05 million square miles. The latest Antarctic minimum over the satellite record was March the 3rd. We anticipate that sea ice will continue to expand as late summer and autumn proceed. Then they talk about ocean waves on sea ice, and they've got a new sea ice analysis tool. You can click there and go there, and you can do charts and graphs and things, and set up your days and months and things like that. I looked at it, so that's okay. So I'll leave the link below for this page. Now let's hop on over to NASA Worldview, and I will refresh so that we can get all the latest data possible. So here it is from today, March the 10th, on the Arctic. And we can see all the coastline is in the light, except for this tippy point of Greenland and this little tippy point of Canada. And within a day or two, this circle will be retreated. This is where as the Earth is tilting, the North Pole is tilting more towards the sun, then this black hole will get smaller and smaller and smaller until it's all in the sunlight. And then it stays in the sunlight for months. It doesn't go down. It's constantly in the sunlight for months. And then we'll start really watching what the sea ice is doing. This is just some missing data over here for today. It'll come in, it just hasn't all come in yet. So here we are. We can zoom in and see the condition of the ice. This is the Baffin Bay. Now we saw it quite thin over here, and you can see a lot of the water and just chunks of ice here. This is a cloud over here. There's no sea ice. We can see the ice through the cloud here. So we can see a lot of open water around the coastline here of Greenland. And it never really froze solid all the way down here in the winter time this year. So as things heat up, the same with this area. You can see all these lines where it's cracked. Here it is. That's a good view. There are no clouds there. And these are called leads, where it's thinner and it had melted through, and then these are ice chunks, and then it refroze. So this area where you see the leads is just a very thin piece of ice, whereas these are thicker pieces of ice. Let's look up here on the northeast corner of Greenland. That's all cracked up. We can see a big area here that had melted. And then we're looking through some clouds here. Here's Svalbard. We can see that this is cloud below Svalbard and on the east. So there's no ice on the southern end. And just a little bit of ice on the east end. Now we're looking through these striped clouds and seeing the ice. Here's Novaya Zemlya. It's hard to tell how far up the ice comes because of the clouds here, but it looks like it comes almost up to the coastline here. And it looks like it refroze a thin layer around the coastline. But there's no ice up here. We're looking through clouds there, and very little ice down here. Just not even enough to think about. Here is the Yamal Peninsula. Here's Severnaya Zemlya, where we've been seeing those very high releases of methane since January. So when we zoom in, we can see this is what it looks like around the coastline. And this is where we saw it had all melted, and there's evidence of that where it's so thin here. And it's probably, there are probably areas where it's melted, but it's just hard to tell, because it might have refrozen just a tiny bit, or there's a cloud over it or something. As we can see here, this is where it had melted away from the coastline. Or I don't think it ever really froze up to this little shelf that's along the coastline. And we can see this area where there's nothing. I'm wondering if they had run icebreakers through here. They probably did, to keep some lanes, some channels open during the winter. Here's the Bering Sea. Here's a big area that had thawed out. See that? A big area here. It is slightly refrozen. So this is not healthy ice. It's, I don't know. And as it's melting, and the way these wave patterns work is they move the ice down, so the ice is being pushed down this way towards Greenland, so across from Russia over to Greenland is the way it works. That's a very simplified explanation. If you want to look at yesterday, we might be able to see a little bit more. this is cloud here that we're looking through. So it's just hard to tell much. Here's a very thin area right there, you can see. Here's the Bering Strait, and you can, this is a good view of all these cracks in the ice, all these leads. And this is the Beaufort Sea here. And it's cloud covered right now, so we can't really see what's going on there. This is Alaska. This is all Russia. This is Canada over here. Let's see what's happening. All right. Now we'll take a peek at the Antarctic and we'll end this. Here it is from today. Looking over here on this eastern side, this is the Amory ice sheet. And remember, earlier, 2 or 3 months ago, this piece broke off. This is called D28. It broke off from the ice sheet right here, and it's been kind of, it was lodged in ice for a long time, but now it's set free. There's no ice around it. These are clouds that we're looking through, and it's kept its integrity, and it's quite large, and it's ready to go out to sea. So we'll see if the sea ice forms enough around that before it gets out to sea to keep it in this year. Here's the Weddell ice shelf and the Weddell Sea. This is the area where the sea ice is the thickest. It's down here. Up here, look, this is the A68 iceberg that a couple of years ago had broken off from the Larsen Sea ice shelf and had hung around down here for so long, and then it started migrating up, and it swung around and then around and then up and then out and up. And the last time I looked at this, it was, the front end was pointed more to about the 10 o'clock position here, but now it's straightened out and lined up with this peninsula. That's quite remarkable. Here it was still a little curved. So you can see how much it's changed just in the last 3 days. Here it is from the 7th, where it was pointed at about the 10 o'clock position. And then there's the 8th. That was a big movement. The 9th is too cloudy to see. And then the 10th, we can see it through the clouds. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Then down here is the Pine Island Glacier. It's very cloud covered today. It's been cloud covered for several days. Now on March the 2nd, this is what it looked like after it had calved. it did calve in February, and this biggest piece is still kind of intact, but this is the smaller piece and it's still melting. There are pieces coming off still here. And we can see the remnants of the calving all down here. This is the largest one and there's the next one down. But these are all part of that. So you can see open water right up to the coastline on a lot of this. Or if it's not right up to the coastline, it's just not very far off the coastline. So let's go back to the 10th. Here's today. You can really see where it's all melted. See? Around the coastline. And then this is the Ross ice shelf here, and the Ross Sea down here. So the ice is all melted down here. You can see just a tiny bit left right down here. And so on. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. And this is really our first look at the Arctic sea ice for this year, since the sun has come up. So we will continue to be looking at this as this black hole gets smaller and smaller, and comparing it with the Navy model and the other websites as well. So I think time is very short, and if you've not gotten right with God and Jesus, I highly recommend that, and get your spiritual houses in order before it's too late. And I'm praying for everybody. I'm praying for everybody as we head into these very catastrophic times, tumultuous times. I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's very uncertain. Our future is very uncertain. So until next time, God bless you and go in peace, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye.